Another question from Alex. He says, a different Alex in this case, he says, any crit tips for someone who is more suited for climbs? This is interesting because when I first started cycling, I would say that in my mind, I was like, I'm definitely more suited for climbs, but I really just sucked. And I was light, so I was able to be relatively better than people.
Yeah, I'm a climber.
Yeah, exactly, right? But then once I got into Criteriums, it just got destroyed, and I had no clue what to do. So I feel like I've learned a fair amount. But what would you guys say for folks that are in this situation where they feel like they're a climber, so probably a light build, maybe don't have the biggest power, probably, relatively speaking, but getting into crits?
I've seen plenty of guys who are light and look like climbers. Stringy legs. I mean, you can't imagine how they could muster a sprint, let alone hang on for an entire Criterium. And they've got mad power. I mean, they can generate watts quick. They can stay on top of it. They're metabolically very fit. They don't have a ton of muscle mass, but it still works, which just furthers the fact this is an aerobic sport. You don't. While those big muscles that we're talking about are bigger muscles or strength do benefit you, especially if you're looking to chase high watts, they're not necessary. You can be a slighter build rider and still have a whole lot of punch.
And with that punch, with a lighter rider, you can follow kind of the snappier accelerations. It doesn't hurt as bad, right? So when the race is really popping off and people are attacking left and right, follow those moves, right? Like you're going to be in a better situation because you can handle those repeated accelerations better just because you're a lighter person. And then also when someone else is doing the grunt work, like getting up to speed is the hardest part in a crit, or the attack, right? To get up to 35 miles an hour. So if you're following wheels and the person in front of you is doing the large watts to get up to speed, and you're just on his wheel because you were paying attention and had the snappy acceleration, all of a sudden he's tired, you're off the front, and you're with 2 or 3 other guys. And then all of a sudden you get the advantage because you're a small guy. You can work the same, keep the speed high. It's the same amount of work for you as it is for everyone else, but everyone's getting less of a draft.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of benefits to being a small,
There are.
Snappy, like climby guy.
Yeah. We even talked about like moving through the pack.
Yeah.
And I think that there's this theory that if you're a little guy, then you get pushed around by the big guys. And while that can totally be the case, I don't think that it's necessary, and I don't think that it's just purely based off of build. I think that as a little guy, you can fit through smaller holes.
The holes there's much more of them. Right?
Yep. And then the other thing that we talked about too is, if you can get your hips kind of in front of the other person's, you have a kind of a rule for
there's just a lot to be gained by learning to move around in a field. And another, in fact, the same guy who told me the 3-year trajectory for body recomposition had told me, I want you over the course of this road to 2.5, 3 hour road race, I want you to move from the front of the field to the back of the field to the front of the field 10 total times. So I had a very specific goal, and he meant in the field, not get to the outside and drop to the back and then hammer to the front again, but actually make my way diagonally all the way to the back, get to the front, and keep on doing that. He had no goals beyond that for the race.
Everybody in the race is going, Chad, what are you doing?
they're not even noticing. They're watching their own thing.
Right.
But over the course of that, the other point he imparted is that you are in control once your hip is in front of their bars, or even with their bars. So every guy wanted to move diagonally and get around, I would just work to a point where my hips were even with his bars, and then I'd focus on the next guy and do the same thing. And it worked wonders, and it changed me as a mass start racer.
I find smooth racers, ones in smooth comes from a knowledge of how to maintain momentum, a knowledge of how to conserve energy when you're on the bike. And then also, usually if you're a smooth racer, you're the type that looks ahead and is able to read what's going on well. But I feel that those racers just move through the pack better. And I think that a person that's surgy and is going to be constantly kind of, when I say surgy, I mean kind of negatively, in the sense that they're the type that's fingers on the brakes, ready to break at any moment. They're jumpy in the group. That's when you're not going to move forward. One question that we actually had that we were planning to address, and we'll just kind of loosely address it, was from a person that is great at TTs and super high power to weight ratio. Crazy.
So like 49 minute
40K, insanely fast. Really fast time trialists too. But they were saying that they're terrible at crits and they can't move up. And man, like, this is one thing that I feel it's so much a mental limitation that a lot of people put on themselves. Like, for example, in that question, he said, I'm not a good bike handler, and all these problems get worse when it's wet. It gets worse for everybody when it's wet. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
It's not just you. And I know that in this situation, you might think that you're excessively, poor at this sort of thing, but if you can so much of it is mindset when you're cutting through those brakes. And
it is though. So exactly what you said. I'm not a good bike handler. Well, you just set the bar extremely
prophecy.
low, and that means right from the start, you're probably going into this with way more tension than is necessary, and you're not going to be a good bike handler. Tell yourself otherwise. Say, you know what, I'm not a good bike handler, but I'm going to get better today.
Yep.
So relax, go in there with that attitude, and try to find small bits of improvement.
Those sort of drills that we talked about earlier will really help you get comfortable, because like crashing sucks on a bike, but you don't realize, and there's a fine line on a road bike compared to other disciplines, but like you said, you don't have to crash.
Yeah.
And if you can build up comfort on your bike and learning how to maneuver and separate yourself from that, you start to really gain a whole lot of confidence. So slow things down, get in a safe spot where you can work on drills like that, and it really helps. So we